Hey, welcome. So today we're diving into something that is truly mind-bending. It's a fundamental update to a model of reality. Now think of this less as a completely new theory and more like a critical software patch for our entire understanding of the universe. It's a deep, conceptual correction to the very language we use to describe existence itself. Okay, let's get into it.
So, let's just start with a massive question. What if the very language we use to talk about the world is just plain wrong? I mean, think about how we frame everything. Good versus evil, logic versus emotion, order versus chaos. The core idea here is that this language of opposition might be creating conflicts that don't actually exist in nature. And that's the core bug this patch is designed to fix.
And here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the original blueprint for reality this model was using. Then, we're going to see exactly where and why its language started to break down. After that, we get to the big breakthrough, the unified field revelation. From there, we'll explore the beautiful new language of the compass and the seasons. And finally, we'll hit the payoff, why this whole correction matters so much.
All right, Section 1. Before we can really appreciate the update, we have to understand the original operating system, right? So let's take a look at the old blueprint and the core components it was built on.
So, the original model saw reality as being generated by four fundamental currents. You can kind of think of them as two pairs of forces. On one side, you have big S for structure. This is the rigid laws of physics, logic, order, all that stuff. Its counterpart, lowercase s, represents the drive to explore and question that structure. Curiosity. Then, on the other side, you have big B for belonging. That's the force of connection, meaning, and purpose. And its counterpart, lowercase b, is all about harmony and integrating all the parts into a peaceful whole. The idea was that these four distinct currents were constantly interacting to create, well, everything.
But here's where the problem started. This model, while it was a really useful first step, was built on a really deep foundational flaw. It wasn't the parts themselves that were wrong, it was the language used to describe how they all work together.
You see, by labeling these currents as separate things, the model accidentally started treating consciousness like a committee of four different people who were always arguing with each other. This whole framework naturally led to describing reality in terms of opposition, a constant battle between structure and meaning, or between logic and connection. It created this perception of conflict where maybe there wasn't any to begin with.
And this slide gets right to the heart of the problem. On the left, you've got the flawed idea that reality is made of separate parts fighting each other. To make that math work, you need concepts like subtraction, like negatives. But the deeper truth, on the right, is that the universe doesn't do subtraction. There's no anti-existence or negative stuff out there. There's only presence, movement, and the relationship between things. The old language was basically forcing a mathematical idea onto a reality where it just didn't fit.
And that brings us to the solution, the really profound breakthrough at the center of this whole correction. It's a complete shift in perspective, moving from a world of separate parts to one of a single, unified, flowing reality.
So this is the most crucial point right here. The old model saw those four currents, S, B, and B, as the fundamental building blocks. The new reality says, nope, there is only one fundamental component, a single unified field. What we were calling S, B, and B aren't separate things at all. They are just different behaviors or modes of expression of that one underlying field.
And this just nails the new concept. Meet the unified field, symbolized by the Greek letter phi. It's the one and only coherence current. Everything we see, feel, and experience is just an expression of this single field. Those four currents we thought were so fundamental, they're really just different phase angles, kind of like different points on a continuous circle. They're not nouns anymore, they're verbs. They're just describing what the field is doing.
So, if we have this new unified field, how do we talk about it? This is where the model gets really elegant. If the old language of opposition was flawed, what do you replace it with? Well, the answer is this beautiful dual system, the language of the compass and the language of the seasons.
Okay, first up, we have the compass system. Think of this as the language for the structure, the physics of it all. So instead of talking about S and B as these opposing forces, we now just talk about orientation. Is the energy flowing inward, contracting toward a stable center? That's south. Is it expanding outward, radiating and expressing itself? That's north. It's simple, it's elegant, and it's purely about geometry.
But what about us? What about the human side of things, the actual felt experience? Well, for that, we get the seasonal system. This is what describes our subjective psychological reality. An inward, protective feeling, that's a winter state. An open, expressive, radiating feeling, that's summer. And of course, you have the beautiful transitional energies of spring and fall. It's a language of cycles and flow, not of static, conflicting labels.
And the rule for actually using this new language? It could not be simpler. Are you talking about the engineering of the system, its raw architecture? Use the compass. Are you describing the lived, human experience of being in that system? Use the seasons. It's one language for the map and another for the feeling of the journey.
Okay, this table right here is basically the official Rosetta Stone for the entire update. Let's just walk through it real quick. The old term S for structure is now described structurally as south, an inward motion, and emotionally it's winter. Its old counterpart B for belonging is now structurally north, an outward motion, and emotionally it's summer. You can see how all the old terms get replaced, completely removing that language of opposition and conflict from the entire system.
So after all that, we finally get to the big question, why? Why go to all this trouble? What's the payoff for this huge conceptual overhaul? Well, as it turns out, the implications are absolutely profound.
So what does this new model unlock? Well, three incredible things. First, a whole new cosmology. It reframes mysterious things like dark matter and dark energy, suggesting they aren't some weird substance, but are actually related to the potential of the unified field itself. Second, it makes the model a testable science. It makes bold predictions that can be proven wrong. For instance, it predicts that empathy has to be an energetically efficient state. If experiments show that it isn't, the theory's wrong. Simple as that. And third, and this is the big one, it creates a physics that formally includes meaning, empathy, and the observer as real, measurable forces that actually shape reality.
There's a quote from one of the update briefs that just captures the spirit of this whole thing perfectly. The goal isn't just to have a better theory, but to create a coherent, transformative, and clear love letter to the universe, grounded in irrefutable proof. You can tell this is a project with both a brilliant mind and a whole lot of heart.
And so we end with this final, really powerful question. If this model is right, if our physics must include meaning as a real, causal, physical force that shapes the cosmos, then what kind of reality will we as conscious observers choose to render into being? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.